A celebrity chef humiliates a homeless man outside his restaurant, only to discover it's none other than Snoop Dogg in disguise. What happens next is a story of redemption, controversy, and an unexpected partnership that shocks everyone. If this story leaves you with strong opinions, let us know in the comments. Do you think the chef deserved a second chance? Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss stories that challenge the way we see the world. The city bustled with the hum of evening activity, its streets illuminated by the glow of streetlights and neon signs. Among the row of high-end restaurants lining the avenue, one stood out with its modern facade and elegant logo. Inside, the clinking of wine glasses and the murmur of refined conversation filled the air. The chef, a celebrity in the culinary world, orchestrated the service with precision from the open kitchen. His sharp commands to the staff cut through the room like a maestro conducting an orchestra. His reputation built on both his extraordinary dishes and his uncompromising standards. Outside the restaurant, the air was cold and the faint scent of truffle oil and seared steak wafted out onto the sidewalk. A man in tattered clothing shuffled along the street, pausing outside the restaurant's grand glass doors. His face was weathered, his hair unkempt, and his eyes carried a quiet exhaustion. He pressed his hands against the glass, peering in at the diners, laughing and sipping fine wine. For a moment, he seemed lost in the scene, his breath visible in the chill of the evening. Inside, the chef caught sight of him through the window and scowled. This was not an uncommon sight in the city, but tonight it felt particularly unwelcome. Turning to a nearby waiter, the chef snapped, "Get rid of him. He's bad for business." The waiter hesitated, but obeyed, stepping outside to confront the man. "Sir," the waiter said softly, his tone almost apologetic, "you can't stand here. Please move along." The man looked at him, nodded without a word, and began to shuffle away. From inside, the chef watched, arms crossed, his face a mask of disapproval. What none of them knew was that the moment had been captured by a passerby on their phone. A brief video clip, shaky but clear, showed the waiter asking the man to leave while the chef glared in the background. The clip, no longer than 15 seconds, was posted on social media with the caption, "Compassion is dead, celebrity chef throws out homeless man." Within hours, the video gained traction. Comments flooded in, many condemning the apparent lack of humanity displayed by the restaurant staff. "This is disgusting," one user wrote, their words echoing the sentiment of hundreds of others. Others, however, defended the restaurant, arguing that the chef had every right to prioritize his paying customers. The video soon spread beyond the confines of social media, with local news stations picking up the story. The chef remained unaware of the brewing storm, still engrossed in his world of immaculate plates and impeccable service. The next morning, the chef walked into his restaurant, still basking in the glow of last night's rave reviews. A few guests had praised the latest additions to the seasonal menu, and he was already thinking of ways to outdo himself. But as he stepped into the kitchen, one of his staff hesitated before approaching him, holding a phone with the video playing on its screen. "Have you seen this?" they asked nervously. The chef frowned as he watched the clip. His jaw tightened and his brows knitted in frustration. "This is ridiculous," he muttered, dismissing it with a wave of his hand. "People don't understand how a business works. This will blow over." But it didn't blow over. The video continued to spread, picking up more attention with each passing hour. Influencers began discussing it on their platforms, some even sharing their personal stories of kindness or criticizing the growing divide between privilege and poverty. Hashtags like "kindness is served cold" and "do better chef" trended on Twitter, and even late-night hosts joined the conversation, poking fun at the chef's apparent lack of empathy. By the end of the day, the chef's inbox was flooded with messages, some supportive, others harshly critical. Reservations began to drop, and his restaurant's rating on popular review sites plummeted as users left one-star reviews to protest what they saw as heartlessness. For the first time in his career, the chef felt the weight of public scrutiny, his carefully curated image tarnished by 15 seconds of video. The mounting backlash pushed the chef to take action. Realizing the damage to his reputation, he issued a public apology through a carefully crafted video posted on his restaurant's social media accounts. Sitting in his restaurant's minimalist dining room, he wore a somber expression as the camera rolled. I want to address an incident that has caused significant concern, he began, his tone measured. First, I deeply regret the way I handled the situation. I've always been focused on creating a space of excellence in my restaurant, but in doing so, I lost sight of something far more important: basic humanity. For that, I am truly sorry. He promised to learn from the experience and vowed to be more mindful in the future. The video garnered mixed reactions. Some praised him for taking responsibility and showing humility. At least he's apologizing and not doubling down, one comment read. Others were less forgiving, calling the apology insincere. This feels like damage control, not genuine remorse, another user wrote, a sentiment echoed by many. Despite his efforts, the public's trust in the chef had been shaken. Local news outlets continued to cover the story, replaying the clip alongside his apology, often with commentary questioning whether his actions matched his words. Late-night hosts used the incident as fodder for monologues, some jokingly suggesting that the chef should rename one of his signature dishes Compassion Consomme. The restaurant, once bustling with patrons, began to see a noticeable dip in reservations. Regulars canceled their bookings, and prospective diners turned elsewhere, unwilling to support someone they perceived as lacking empathy. The chef found himself in a position he had never experienced before, on the defensive, his once sterling reputation under siege. Amid this storm, the chef received an unexpected phone call. The voice on the other end was calm but carried a distinct, laid-back drawl. "Yo, this is Snoop," it said. The chef froze, momentarily stunned. It was unmistakably Snoop Dogg, the legendary rapper and entrepreneur. "We need to talk," Snoop continued. "You free tomorrow?" The chef agreed, still reeling from the call. The next day, Snoop arrived at the restaurant, dressed casually but exuding the unmistakable charisma of someone who owned every room he entered. They sat down in the restaurant's private dining room, the tension palpable as the chef braced himself for what was coming. "Look," Snoop began, leaning back in his chair, "I saw what went down, and yeah, it wasn't a good look. But I'm not here to pile on. I'm here to talk about what happens next." The chef frowned, unsure of where this was going. "I've already apologized," he said cautiously. "What more can I do?" Snoop gave a small smile, his tone calm but direct. "Apologies are cool and all, but they're just words. What you need is action. Real action. So here's the deal. You've got talent, no one's denying that, but talent means nothing if it doesn't serve a purpose. Let's take this mess and turn it into something good." The chef tilted his head, intrigued but skeptical. "What do you have in mind?" Snoop leaned forward, his voice steady. "We're going to feed the people, all of them, not just the ones who can pay for a $300 meal. You, me, and your kitchen. We're going to set up an event. Serve food to the folks who don't get to sit in a place like this. Show the world you're about more than just fancy plates." The chef hesitated, the weight of the idea sinking in. It was a risk, one that could either rebuild his image or cement his downfall. But as he looked at Snoop, he saw a man who wasn't just offering a way out, but a chance to genuinely make a difference. Finally, he nodded. "Let's do it." The plan was set in motion almost immediately. Snoop Dogg used his expansive social media platform to announce the event, framing it as an opportunity to bridge divides and give back to the community. "Yo, we're turning things around," he posted in a video to his millions of followers. "Me and the chef are throwing down for the people who need it most. This ain't just about food, it's about love, respect, and second chances. Pull up if you're about it." The response was overwhelming. Volunteers from across the city offered their time to help with the event, from serving meals to setting up tables. Donations of food and supplies poured in, and the event quickly gained traction among local charities and community organizations. Even celebrities joined the cause, drawn by Snoop's magnetic influence and the positive message behind the initiative. The chef, meanwhile, transformed his pristine kitchen into a hub of chaotic but purposeful activity. He worked tirelessly alongside his staff, crafting a menu that was both high quality and comforting: rich stews, fresh-baked bread, and hearty roasted vegetables. For the first time in years, the chef wasn't concerned about Michelin stars or critic reviews. His focus was on creating something meaningful, something that could bring joy to people who rarely had the chance to experience a meal like this. On the day of the event, a local park was transformed into a vibrant gathering space. Long tables were set up beneath strings of twinkling lights, giving the evening a warm, welcoming atmosphere. Music played softly in the background, and volunteers bustled between tables, greeting guests and serving steaming plates of food. The crowd was diverse, a mix of individuals from all walks of life: homeless families, struggling workers, and curious onlookers, drawn by the buzz surrounding the event. Snoop arrived early, mingling with the crowd and spreading his characteristic charm. He posed for photos, shook hands, and shared laughs with those in attendance. When the chef arrived, dressed in his usual crisp whites, there was an initial hesitation from the crowd. Many recognized him from the viral clip that had sparked the controversy, and the whispers began almost immediately. But as he stepped behind the serving line, greeting each guest with a genuine smile and a plate of food, the tension slowly melted away. Throughout the evening, the chef found himself humbled by the gratitude of those he served. A young mother, balancing a toddler on her hip, thanked him with tears in her eyes. "We haven't had a meal like this in months," she said. An elderly man who had spent years living on the streets smiled broadly as he took a plate of braised short ribs. "I don't know how to say thank you," he said quietly. For the chef, these moments were transformative. In his world of fine dining, gratitude often came in the form of glowing reviews or a pat on the back from a high-profile guest. But here, every thank you carried a depth of sincerity he hadn't encountered before. It wasn't just about the food, it was about what the food represented: care, dignity, and connection. The event was an undeniable success. Media outlets covered the story, highlighting the collaboration between Snoop Dogg and the chef as a powerful example of redemption and community building. Social media buzzed with photos and videos from the evening, and the hashtags "kindness in action" and "Snoop the people" began trending. As the night wound down and the last plate was served, Snoop and the chef stood together, looking out over the crowd. "You did good today," Snoop said, clapping the chef on the back. "Real good." The chef, exhausted but content, nodded. "This felt different," he admitted, "better than any review I've ever gotten." Snoop grinned. "Told you. It ain't just about the food, it's about what it means to people. Keep doing this, and you'll be cooking more than meals. You'll be building something real." In the weeks following the event, the impact of that single night rippled far beyond the park where it had taken place. For the chef, it marked the beginning of a profound transformation, not just in his career, but in his outlook on life. He began to view his restaurant not just as a business, but as a platform for change. The first step was a new initiative, donating all unused food from his restaurant to local shelters at the end of each day. What had once been discarded without a second thought now served as a vital resource for those in need. The chef also announced a monthly event inspired by the collaboration with Snoop Dogg, a community table night, where the restaurant would open its doors to anyone struggling with food insecurity, offering them the same quality of service and meals as paying customers. The media took notice of these efforts, with headlines shifting from criticism to praise. Stories about the chef's redemption and newfound commitment to giving back filled news feeds, and interviews with him painted a picture of someone who had truly been changed by the experience. "I used to think success was about awards and recognition," he said in one interview, "but now I know it's about the impact you leave on people's lives. That's what really matters." Snoop Dogg, too, reflected on the success of their partnership during a podcast appearance. "Man, this wasn't about dragging someone down," he said. "It was about lifting them up. People mess up, sure, but they need a chance to make it right. That chef, he took that chance, and look what happened. He's feeding people, inspiring others, and showing the world that change is possible. That's what it's all about." The story didn't just end with the chef's transformation. Inspired by the event, other restaurants across the country began implementing similar initiatives. High-profile chefs and food industry leaders announced programs to reduce food waste and support their local communities. Social media buzzed with stories of small acts of kindness sparked by the movement, all tied back to the now famous collaboration between Snoop Dogg and the chef. For the chef, the journey wasn't always easy. There were still skeptics who questioned his motives, and balancing his charitable efforts with the demands of running a high-end restaurant required constant adjustment. But with each meal served at a shelter, each handshake shared at a community table night, he felt a sense of fulfillment he had never experienced before. Months later, as the restaurant regained its popularity, the chef stood in his bustling kitchen watching his team work with precision and care. In a quiet moment, he reflected on how much had changed since that cold night when he had dismissed the man outside his door. That single mistake had brought his life to a crossroads, forcing him to choose between clinging to his old ways or stepping into something greater. On the anniversary of the community event, the chef and Snoop Dogg reunited for another collaboration. This time, it was a nationwide campaign to combat food insecurity, with restaurants across the country participating. Standing side by side at a press conference, Snoop spoke directly to the cameras. "This ain't just about food," he said, his voice steady. "It's about how we treat each other. It's about building a world where no one gets left behind." The chef nodded, adding, "I learned something important through all this. It's not about where someone comes from or what they look like. Everyone deserves dignity, and as long as I have a kitchen, I'm going to do my part to make sure they get it." The story left an indelible mark on those who followed it, sparking discussions about the importance of compassion, accountability, and the power of second chances. It reminded people that no mistake is too great to overcome as long as there's a willingness to learn and grow. And so, as the cameras turned off and the world moved forward, the message remained. Kindness isn't just a gift, it's a responsibility. And sometimes it's the simplest acts of compassion that create the most profound change.